Back in 2017, the Gordon-Bloomfield family had two very different EVs. We had the 2013 Nissan Leaf that my wife and I purchased used when we emigrated to the US in August 2015, and we had a 2002 Toyota RAV4 EV. My buddy, Kate Walton Elliott, up in Washington, she had a 2003 Toyota RAV4 EV. So we both had Toyota RAV4 EVs for a while, but while hers, she paid a considerable amount of money for and it was reliable, my 2002 was eating batteries for breakfast, dinner and lunch. There was an issue with the battery pack when we got the car, and we paid about $8,500 to have a new battery pack put in, which was fine. The car worked just fine. But then it started to behave strangely. Even though the batteries were generally in pretty good health, it just started to randomly have issues with charging and all these other things. And the reason we got the car in the first place was to see if a 2002 RAV4 EV, which was a previous generation EV, from the time of, paddle chargers and the EV1, if that could be driven as a daily driver reliably. And the answer, unfortunately, was no, it couldn't, because it had issues, and the person that we were relying on to help us keep it on the road, when we had a problem and the battery suddenly died on me, they said, it's going to be 2 or 3 months before we can look at it. At that point in time, our family needed reliable transport because we had someone who was regularly visiting the hospital, regularly going to different places in the state of Oregon. And so we needed a way of getting from A to B reliably and not worry that the car was going to break down or there were going to be issues. So in August 2017, we switched out the RAV4 EV for this. This is Artemis. She's a 2017 Chevrolet Bolt EV LT. When she was being unloaded from the trailer at the dealership, something happened and she ended up running into a lamppost. I don't know the story. They did show me the photographs. She basically had the front end. She needed a new bumper. I think she needed a new bonnet and a couple other things. But it meant that when she was on the lot, she was heavily discounted. So it was a great deal for us. We ended up signing up for a 3-year lease, 15,000 miles a year lease deal. And we're coming to the end of that period now. It was $288 a month, great lease deal. It was just what we needed when we needed it. And if you've been following me on Twitter, you've been talking to me in the comments section, we've been talking about what do we do when August comes around and this car's lease is up. Now, traditionally, obviously, most people hand their car back and they start a new lease, or they will hand the car back and then go and buy another car from somewhere else, or they will extend the lease is another option, or they'll buy the car outright. We've decided to buy the car outright. In fact, we have purchased the car outright. The deal went through on Friday, and I'm making this video to discuss some of the reasons and some of the logic behind it, because I think a lot of people are going to be very frustrated that we didn't buy a new car, that we didn't get a new lease, and we're here today to talk about the reasons why we decided to buy the lease out. The first one is financial. Because this car was quite heavily discounted when we purchased it, the residual on this car was pretty good, about $23,000. Now, I've been looking, on used car websites and at local used car dealerships, and as well as new car dealerships. You can't get a Bolt EV with this kind of mileage and this kind of condition for a lot less than this. And a lot of cars that were on sale for $23,000 that were Bolts either have a higher mileage or they're absolutely shagged. The interior's really bad, or there's, lots of exterior damage. I know what this car's been through. I've had this car since it was first registered, and if there are any issues with it, I know about them. It's also started raining, so just watch me get wet as we carry on with this video. So we decided to buy it, and we got a good deal from our local credit union, about 3%, and we're paying about $400 a month. So when that loan has been finished, Artemis will be mine. Now, there are some other advantages to buying out the loan for me specifically as a YouTuber. Number one is I get to report on what this car is going to be like in 5 years, when it's 5 years old, when it's 8 years old, which is a really important thing for me. Obviously, we know that the Leafs had issues with battery longevity, and this is one of the things that we covered when we switched out our 2013 Nissan Leaf for my wife's Bolt, which, by the way, is the same year as mine, but had like 80 or 90,000 miles on the clock. And we purchased that one the same way that we purchased this one, with a loan through our local credit union. It's got a high mileage battery, but it's no noticeable degradation, which is one of the reasons why we decided this was a good buy, because we know that these cars can go for 100, 200,000 miles before you start to see any noticeable battery degradation. We had gone over mileage with our Bolt. Let me put my hood up. There you go. We had gone over mileage on our Bolt, and at 15,000 miles a year, sitting at 48,000, and we hadn't even reached the end of our lease period, we'd have probably ended with 49,000 miles in a 45,000 mile lease period. Now, we had a special insurance policy that covered us to 46,500 miles, but the rest we would have had to have paid 25 cents per mile over in terms of surplus charges. Add into that the fact that we had modified this car with a new tow hitch. We did get a small bicycle carrier tow hitch when we bought the car, so we could put that back on and claim that that was fitted by the manufacturer, which we'd have probably been okay with. But if you consider that we put a big heavy tow hitch on there and we've used it, we also put tow hitch wiring on, which the dealership refused to do when the car was new. We would have had to have paid a significant amount of money to have those taken off, or done it ourselves and then hoped that the dealership and the leasing company didn't ding us with excess charges, because we all know what leasing companies are like. We once had a Smart for 2, which we handed back at the end of the lease, and the leasing company, I think, dinged us for about £1,500. And it was really silly things, but they still dinged us for it. So that's why one of the reasons why we decided to buy out the lease. We didn't want to have to deal with the hassle of that. And it is a hassle, handing back your lease. The other thing is that we could have got another brand new Bolt on a lease deal, but we decided we didn't want a lease anymore. And the reason is this: we have a very unpredictable driving requirements. We are out in the country now. We are 50-mile round trip from Portland itself. And when we moved out here, we knew that it was going to push the cars over. And we also knew that it was probably going to change our car ownership model. We also do a lot of driving for Transport Evolved, and this is our main Transport Evolved car. That's one of the reasons why we put the tow hitch on, so we can tow the little trailer that we put all our camera gear in. And it's really important for us to be able to just jump in the car and go. It's a really efficient way of traveling for us. Very low cost. Yes, hours and days in the car, and it's not necessarily pleasant for everybody involved. But it means when we're there, we also have transport. So when we go to CES in Vegas, we have a car that we can drive from our Airbnb to the show and back every day. And that is really important for us, because it means we don't have to hire a car, and that would probably have to be a gasoline car. So we don't have to hire a gas car. We don't have to travel on an airplane. And the other thing is, when you travel with, I think we had 25 cases for fully charged live, not for fully charged live, for CES. We had 25 cases of camera gear and, editing equipment and lights and sound stuff and all of that. That was a lot of gear. You put that on a plane, that's going to cost you a lot of money. You ask a logistics company to take it for you, put it on a truck and you meet it there. That's also pretty expensive, and you risk your stuff getting lost, stolen, damaged, whatever. If you transfer your own stuff, if you carry your own stuff with you, there's less chance that something's going to go wrong. So we have the towing capability, we have the long mileage capability. We've proven that with this car. We know this car has been able to travel a high mileage and not have any issues with the battery, and we're hoping that Artemis is going to do the same. By the way, this is Orion and this is Artemis. See if you can spot the connection there in the comments below. So we decided to buy out. We have a great deal. But a lot of you are going to know, a lot of you are going to want to know why we didn't get, a used Model S. We decided not to go with a used Model S for a couple of reasons. First, the Model S's that are within our price point tend to be really old models that have more problems, that don't have any of the advanced, semi-autonomous driver assistance features from autopilot, and they are going to need more repairs. Any car as it gets older is going to need more repairs. The same is true for these two. But the difference is, if something goes wrong with one of these cars and we have the diagnostic tools, we do have some of them, and we're willing to do the work, we are We can ring up our local Chevy dealer, or we can go online, we can order the part we need, go pick it up, bring it home and fit it ourselves. You cannot do that with Tesla. For a lot of things, at least. Tesla makes it very difficult for owner enthusiasts to maintain their own cars, and we don't want that. We want to be able to own the car, and we want to be able to work on it ourselves, and we want the choice to be able to decide when we work on the car ourselves and when we pay someone else to do that. So that's why we didn't go down the Tesla route. We didn't go with a brand new Tesla because they're just too expensive for us. Model 3 is the only one that really we could have afforded. But even then, we would have either have had to have gone with a lease, which I've already said we didn't want to do, or we'd have to go with a long purchase deal for a car that doesn't have a hatch. And we have dogs and we have hobbies that involve us carrying large things on a regular basis. And so a hatchback suits our needs much better. So what about the Niro EV or the e-Niro or the Kona? They would have been good options for us. We did look into those, but again, the price of buying those cars new is still pretty high. I know my buddy Kate Walton Elliott purchased their Niro EV and they are paying on a finance package for it. I have chatted to her. The amount she is paying for the purchase for her car from new, understandably, is much more than what I'm paying for this. So at the end of the day, I think it's still a pretty good deal for us to keep this car. And like I say, I could have gone and got a used Bolt EV like we did here with Orion. But we know what this car's been through. I don't know what a used car sitting on a dealer lot has been through. And so that's the reason why we decided to buy this lease out rather than just take out a new lease. We've got no reason to change cars. It's not an ideal time to change cars. And we trust our local credit union. We've got a much better deal than we would have got in other places. And while we could have got a brand new cash on hood deal from our local Chevy dealership, 0%, huge amounts of discounts, the total amount spent per month would have still been at least $100 more per month than what we are now paying. And that's why we purchased our lease out. I hope that wherever you are, it is nicer than it is here. We're supposed to be finishing the chicken coop in the rain. Lovely. I'll be back tomorrow with normal content, but until then, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And as always, keep evolving.